The chief of the Cheam First Nation was one of the people who met with Mr. Trudeau on his visit. Now, the chief supports the Trans Mountain pipeline and is already involved in an advisory group related to it, an Aboriginal advisory group. He wants ultimately to see his community potentially take a stake, a financial stake in Trans Mountain. We're joined by Ernie Crey, chief of the Cheam First Nation. Chief, thanks so much for coming on the show once again.
Oh, you're most welcome.
So the pipeline runs through your traditional lands, and you've already, I understand, received a $1 million payment from Kinder Morgan, the community. So tell us, what's your involvement with the pipeline right now as a community?
Right now, well, we continue to be one of 13 participants on an advisory committee, along with representatives of government, and our focus is on the construction of the new pipe and also monitoring the existing pipe. So we were established to monitor both the existing pipe and the new pipe once construction begins, because we have certain interests in the land and the waters and the environment in total as this pipeline is being constructed. So we wanted to play a role, a very close role, working with the federal regulators to make sure that our interests are protected as the pipeline construction proceeds.
Now, I understand you have already received, the community, a $1 million payment from Trans Mountain / Kinder Morgan, and some of that you've already distributed to community members.
Yes, yes, that's right. It's not true. The rumors that I received the $1 million, it went to the community. And so we did do a substantial distribution three Fridays ago to members of the community, and many of them were happy to receive it. And over time, of course, following that, receiving that $1 million, of course, we received additional funds, and those funds will be put in a community trust, so that the community can benefit from the interest earned on an annual basis, both for individual members, but for community infrastructure that we have planned. In other words, spending in the community on things that we need.
Your total registered population there, I believe, are around 548. Can you tell us how do you allocate the money? Is it just on a per capita basis?
Yeah, that's right, and that's every man, woman, and child. And the monies earmarked for the children don't go directly to the parents. They go to a trust which minors receive when they turn the age of majority, which in BC is 19.
That's interesting. Now, you guys are interested in investing, potentially getting some kind of an equity stake in the pipeline. Could you tell us, would you see the Cheam First Nation doing that as a group?
Yeah, at this stage, we're very interested in it. The door was opened when the finance minister made a public announcement a number of days back that might be an option for us. So we took note of that, and so we're thinking about the possibility of doing that, but it of course would be subject to research, and also, because the new owner is the Government of Canada itself, thoroughgoing discussions before we would arrive at a final decision as to whether or not to take out a stake in the pipeline or not. But yes, to answer your question, we're interested in that possibility. Now,
the non-Aboriginal community is divided over Trans Mountain, and so is your own community. Apparently, some people were unhappy. They felt, oh, you should have given us more notice that Mr. Trudeau was visiting yesterday. Some members of your own community apparently opposed to Trans Mountain.
We're like any other community along the pipeline route, whether Indigenous or non-Indigenous. There are people in communities that are troubled at the prospect of the construction of the new pipeline. We understand that, but in our community, the majority of members of Cheam are supportive, and I hear from them every day. But yes, we do have some people that are not happy at the prospect of the pipeline being constructed.
Just remind us, I mean, you yourself are elected. When do you go up for election again?
Well, I was elected in late November, so I'm around for another 17 or 18 months, and my role is the chief of the community.
Do you feel, I think you've said this in the past, that the message is not getting out, that quite a few Aboriginal people are keen in investing in energy infrastructure?
Well, yes. There are 43 other communities along the Kinder Morgan TMX pipeline route. Most of them are in British Columbia, and a number of them are in Alberta. They've had agreements in place with Kinder Morgan now for some time. When you take the combined populations of these 43 communities, it numbers in the many thousands of people. Those communities, along with mine, see that in concluding these agreements with Kinder Morgan, as we did, and might I add here that government has already told us that they'll take on the responsibility of these agreements from Kinder Morgan. So we've been told by the Prime Minister and others these agreements will be carried forward. But let's return to the central issue. The communities that have this agreement, it will prove to be a boon to many of them. It's already proving to be a boon to my community in terms of job training, jobs. And we've also taken the critical step of forming joint venture arrangements with local companies and even national companies. And the purpose of that is to participate in the construction of the pipeline so that the community can earn greater benefits than simply having an agreement. We'll form these partnerships and in these joint ventures, and the funds that we earn, we will drive back into our own enterprises in our communities. And so it's not, as some critics have suggested, simply participating in the construction of the pipeline and then being patted on the head and said, well, thank you very much, Chief, to you and your community. See you later. No. We see the construction of this pipeline as a springboard, an opportunity to take our earnings, amplify our earnings through our own enterprises and businesses so that we can go forward providing employment for our community members really in perpetuity.
And sorry, just to make it clear, your businesses in the Cheam First Nation, you hope will be involved in the actual expansion, the construction work?
Oh, yes. And to do so, we have formed joint venture arrangements with local companies and national companies so we can participate in the construction of the pipeline.
We'll have to leave it there, Chief. Thank you very much indeed for joining us.
You're most welcome.
Ernie Crey, Chief of the Cheam First Nation in BC.